yeah, so we're gonna go into the infinite. Like I said,
and beyond.
we may have to we may have to redo the middle part, but that's okay. So the into the infinite, we're going into the
We're going towards the monolith, whatever it is. We don't know, and we don't see it for very long.
No, we don't.
We
and we don't even see
transition.
it. Like, does he enter? We don't see him enter the monolith.
You never see it. It's simply it's viewed from his perspective, but outside of the pod. And as we approach the monolith, there's suddenly a burst of light that emanates from the center of the screen and grows out. And then we begin to see all these colorful effects of the slit scan camera technology that if you were to show it to a youngster, they would assume it was early computer graphics. And
right, but it's
by
not.
God, that's absolutely what it looks like. It looks like you couldn't achieve these effects with anything other than advanced computer graphics. But nope, it's old-fashioned analog, using some clever trickery.
Sure, like taking the camera and going like this.
Yeah, that does happen.
So that Bowman looks like he's
shaking.
Encountering massive gravitational forces
or something. And again, this is where
I'm assuming like a black hole. I'm assuming like an event, like not the, I mean, like he's being, there's something going on that's extraordinary.
There's something extraordinary, and we really don't see. We see Bowman in the shaking. Okay, so and he's squinting. So there's feels to him like there's some kind of physical trauma.
So we're having that's done, and it's done in regular camera, like it's done in regular motion. We're able to be a test pilot. We're able to like he's priming us, right?
Yep.
So I think that Kubrick is taking us from this sterile, this more cerebral scene with the syzygy and the tumbling, monolith and the beautiful thing. And now he's like, okay, I'm going to make you feel something.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. This isn't the quiet desolation of space anymore.
No.
We're going somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's violent and it's active.
Kubrick's reaching his hand out and he's like, wake up.
Right. Because I'm going to show you some real stuff.
You wait till you see this.
Yeah, exactly.
This is all the tricks that he had up his sleeve 10 years before this movie was made. Well, many of them.
Right. And it's interesting that you bring that up. I hadn't thought about it at all, but there has to be a distinct break between all of the journey of discovery up to this point, which is that quiet, you're in space, it's silent. There has to be a way to shake you out of that, to prep you for now you're into the real psychological portion of the movie. There has to be a transition to that part.
He does it visually, but he also does it with the music as well. So the music is the Ligeti music.
Yes.
When we're looking at the crazy, I mean, not the beauty, of the Jovian system. But then the music, like, kind of, it changes. It's subdued. I think it's just really sound. And then there's music. There's more Ligeti music, but it's different.
That's right. There's a combination of sound like rumbling.
Yes.
And then there's a transition back to that Ligeti music.
Right.
So we see I'm trying to remember which comes first. There's the First we see what look like stars being formed, galaxies.
Well, I disagree. I think first we see streaks. So we see the split.
Oh, you're right. You're
screen, right.
Yes.
And on one side we see a certain pattern of streaks, and on the other side we see a different pattern of streaks, red and green. I forget which way it starts, but we see that, and it's like, so for me, obviously there's the sense of motion, right? Mm-hmm. So you're traveling, but you're also, it seems like traveling at very, very high speed.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'm getting from that.
Now imagine seeing these effects in 1968.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you, they hold up now.
Yeah.
They hold up now. Before I had read the making of how did they get these effects, I remember staring at it just a few years ago thinking, how the hell did they do this?
Well,
So in particular, the after we go through some of the colored streaks, which look like computer animation, then we go into that what looks like stars being born or galaxies forming, something unknown but clearly cosmic. Are we looking back in time? Who knows?
right.
And I remember looking at those effects again, thinking, how was that achieved? Now that I know how it was, it's like I'm any magic trick. When you know how the magic trick is done, you're like, oh, of course, it's obvious.
Well, don't
Right?
tell me, because I'm
But I'm not. I won't tell you.
fascinated.
I
Yeah.
won't tell you. But it's still very cool. I mean, even if you know how, it's still very cool.
Well, I just kind of came up with this kind of progression of these images and an interpretation of them, and I kind of want to let that kind of oil in my mind for a couple months, because I don't know that I ever dissected it as much as this, just because we were going to do this video. I actually like sat there and went like, well, wait a minute. This looks like a scene from Koyaanisqatsi. This looks like technology taken from an aerial view. At least that's what those first streaks, the split screen streaks, seem like to me. And then the shapes started to become a little more organic. They look like bubbly, like kind of like swirls of color, like you would take a paint in a glycerin or something, like, and swirl it around.
You're not far. You're not far off. How
close,
it was done.
Huh? Yeah. Did you ever see the test where they've done that, where they'll take a cylinder and they'll put paint drops in it? And this is to talk about organization chaos theory. And they'll stir it like 4 times this way, and it's completely swirled. And then they'll stir it 4 times back, and the droplets look almost the same as they were originally.
Yeah, I think I've seen
really
that.
That has more to do with like fluid mediums. I think it has to do with anything that any esoteric is trying to prove by that. But it's just a really neat experiment.
Totally.
Yeah. And then and as he's going through, instead of the shaky rumbly, we
now
see
it's still shots. Yeah.
And he's like turning away from it, but he can't take his eyes off it. It's like, it's terrifying, but I still have to look at it because.
But exactly. But not only that, it's so much more effective. Those brief, almost subliminal still shots are so much more effective at convincing you that he's seeing something that is just shredding his sanity. He's seeing things that are incomprehensible. And he could have, a lesser director would have had him, I don't know, sitting in a sound studio going, ah, and screaming or things like that. Right. Again, but because there's no motion and it's still shot, psychologically, it's much more powerful than showing a regular full motion actor screaming in a helmet.
You sound a little like Daffy Duck when you did that. I love that. And I've never been so insulted in all my life.
Duck Dodgers in the 23rd and a half century.
I love that one. Yeah.
And then it just goes to the blinking eye.
Well, before we get to that, so
is that before or after the diamonds, the pulsating diamonds on the horizon?
So yeah,
I don't know how they did that.
We got the Las Vegas lights. We got like something that looks like you're going through a tunnel. Then what looks like airfields and runways to me. The blinking eye, right? Okay, so the blinking eye. I mean, that's how we still know it's Dave.
Yes.
He's still having a human experience.
Yes, I completely agree.
And that's to ground us, because we're not seeing those flashes of him anymore.
Right.
Now it's something else. He's experiencing something beyond the material realm at this point, right? His humanity's still there, but it's more about the consciousness. You can't show a brain because that would be icky and wouldn't make a lot of sense.
Totally. It's like so much else in the movie. It's all taking place here in the viewer's mind.
Yeah. And it's us too. It's us looking back at ourselves. And it's back to Blade Runner. I mean, like the imagery of the eye, and the idea of the window of the soul, and you can go into all that kind of imagery as well.
I mean, anytime you put a single eye on a 70 millimeter CinemaScope theater screen, it's extremely powerful. I just want to mention a piece about the aliens that he struggled with this because, again, in consulting with experts, they basically said, that, there's other life that might be out there would be life, but not in a way that would necessarily be recognizable to us as life.
Right.
It wouldn't look like anything that you could conceive of, or most likely would not. So he struggled with trying to, he gave art directors or the artists an impossible directive. Look like something that, draw me something that has never existed in a color that doesn't exist. Right?
Oh.
So, what do you do with that? And I saw some of the sketches, and they are way out there.
Yeah.
I mean, way out there.
I guess Geiger wasn't one of them.
And even Geiger is not close to some of these drawings. They're just, they look like creatures, but not in any conventional sense. So I thought they really hit the mark if you're trying to go for what an exomorph might really look like. But in the end, he decided, like
Sorry,
so many.
What? An exomorph?
Yeah, exomorph.
Another bug hunt.
He decided that none of these efforts were sufficiently weird enough, and that the best thing to do is to not show them at all, which is in the end why we don't see the aliens, which clearly now was the right move. Or do we? Yeah, that's a good question.
So let's keep going. So we're going. So we're doing the landscape. Well, we're not the landscape. So we're doing okay. So we get the elliptical galaxy.
Yes.
Right. That.
Yeah.
That star thing you were talking about, that exploding star. I mean, that looks like computer graphics.
Uh-huh.
How do you do that one? I want to know that.
I don't know. I mean, there are some effects. I don't recall reading exactly how they were done.
So that could be. I know, like when they did like Deep Space Nine, they were doing. Babylon 5 was doing special effects at the same time. DS9 was doing exploding spaceship models, and they were still doing the practical effects, and it was still costing them 3 times as much to do it. But that was just the way they did it. And what they did was, in order to simulate zero gravity explosions, they would have the camera on the ground and they would explode it above. So you would have a radial explosion, and then the stuff would fall down. So maybe that's a shower of sparks coming down on a camera lens. I have no idea. But it's that effect could be made. I was just curious how he did it, but if you don't know, that's fine.
That one I don't know.
Yeah.
I actually suspect that's another paint and emulsion trick.
Oh,
Transparent liquids, colored, that are
that's
lit,
just black and white at that point. I think.
that are lit. Yeah. So some of those other ones though are colored fluids that are lit by super high intensity lamps. Yeah.
So that to me, okay, now I'm going to start getting little, let's read into this stuff. So that to me is the elliptical galaxy, right? That's the universe showing itself off, right? That's like, okay, now we're going to show you something. Look how cool the universe is. Look at me. I'm the universe. Boom. I can do this.
You've never seen this before.
The perfect spherical pattern of stars, brilliant white, the whitest white you could see. Look at this. And then they start to get more, I use the word inchoate, right? They get more like primeval, like forms like almost like a jellyfish. One of them reminds me of like a jelly, like a sea jelly.
Yes.
Maybe not with the tendrils.
There's some long tendrils that come off. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the further back, it's almost like you're going further back into the beginning of the universe, and the formations are becoming more like primitive, less organized, until finally there's one that almost it's towards the top of the screen, and it's kind of reddish in color. It's almost like whenever you see pictures of like a fetus in the womb. Yeah. It has that like kind of blood color to it, which I it's like the lifeblood of the universe. To quote, well, I just watched Big Trouble in Little China. So that's a line in Big Trouble in Little China where he's like, what's that? Lifeblood of the universe. What's that? And then there's one actually at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. It almost looks like a spermatozoa. It's like did you get that? it was like it's like a white blob and it's a
Yes.
very short tail, but it was
Yes.
almost, to me, it was almost like
I got that.
you got the sense of birth,
I
right?
got that. Yep.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one. All right, so all right, cool. And then I see other ones that are shaped like mouths and eyes.
Yeah.
But then we get to the aliens.
Yep. Well, we go over some landscapes, which suggests
So
that he's reaching his destination.
so to me, right before the landscapes, there's the 7 diamonds, right?
Yes. Yeah,
So
that's kind of one of the most mysterious parts of the whole thing for me.
those are the aliens to me.
I think that's possible.
They're in organized form.
Yep.
They're changing, they're pulsing. They're like they're changing patterns inside of their pattern. They're flying in an organized formation. They're like, like UFO kind of sighting kind of stuff. But they're flying with him past the landscape, almost as if they're guiding the pod with that. This is totally my interpretation. I have no idea.
Yeah, but I don't think that's an unreasonable interpretation.
Because there's 7 of them equally distanced, almost like flying in a V formation. I
but
don't know.
not only that, they're geometric objects in a landscape that up to this point has been nothing but largely abstract patterns.
Yeah, or stellar patterns, like things the
patterns.
universe would create. But this looks like something created by an intelligence to me.
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible because that sequence with the diamonds is probably always been one of the most baffling ones.
It's the one that stands out from the other ones because the other ones are landscapes and starscapes, right? And emulsions, artistic.
Yeah, I don't know how they achieved the diamond effect, but it doesn't. I like it. I mean, so either interpretation, neither one bothers me. To say that, well, this is just some other weird phenomenon he was observing, or that this is manifestation of the alien presence which has brought him here. Both of those work perfectly fine for me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem with it being like something that we haven't discovered yet in the universe that he just happens to experience. But for me to tie it into the way I like the end, this is, because I'm thinking benevolent, superior, civilization.
They seem to be benevolent. They're very patient. They may have allowed proto-humans to survive from the very beginning, because again, the implication is that those primitive beings might have been on their way out because they would have been outcompeted.
Yeah, the leopards would have got them, or
right.
Yeah, exactly. The tapirs would have ate the last of their food.
And that brings us to the hotel room. Well, I won't even say hotel room, bedroom suite. And as you astutely pointed out, when he arrives, we don't immediately see him. We see his perspective from inside the pod looking out. The pod is still there because the screens are now registering malfunction.
Non-function. And then
so there's still a tie back to the reality that we came from.
The transition, the cinematic transition to that moment too, is from the psychedelic thing that we just saw to back to the more traditional like prop, is his eye again. It's the psychedelic color, and then the colors bleed out to a realistic looking eye, right? So it's actually like Kira Delia's eye, I assume. Because he does have pretty striking, like grayish,
super striking
blue eyes.
Yeah, they really stick out.
It makes you wonder if he was cast for that. Like if that was a contributing factor in the fact that he was cast for that role.
I don't know why he was. I don't know why he was cast. I don't know.
I don't.
He was just coming off of a movie that I only saw maybe 3 or 4 years ago. What Happened to Bunny something? I can't remember the last name of the character. It's a good movie. You should check it out. It's a whodunit. Laurence Olivier is the detective.
Olivier.
And Keir Dullea is a suspect. He talks a lot more than he does in this movie, and it kept me guessing. because Bunny, I can't remember what the last name is, the eponymous subject, has disappeared very inexplicably. Where has she gone? Check it out. It's black and white.
Funny you say Bunny, because I have in my notes here that Bowman is like a scared rabbit being taken to the vet.
That's yeah, right. He's out of
sitting
his
in that
element.
pod and he doesn't know what to do next. And he's just like, oh my God, what just
can you do?
happened? Right.
He has no idea. He's not even really himself anymore.
No. Well, he's
changed.
traumatized.
He's traumatized for sure. And interestingly, I think this is an interesting choice by Kubrick, that when he emerges from the pod, and for one scene, the pod is still there. And then the next scene, the pod is gone.
Yes.
But you see that Bowman has aged inside that helmet. How long did the journey take? Did the journey take years in his time? Did it take as long as it took in the movie, seconds? And that the journey is so hard on the human body that it caused that kind of aging? We don't know.
So I think we're led to believe through some indications of Bowman's the human aging process, if you want to call it that, that time is not operating at the same.
Right.
You know, it's just time is either immaterial here or it's just off.
So you have he first examines the bathroom, which I don't even remember seeing before in previous viewings. So I'm sure it's always been there and it just didn't register with me.
Same.
But the bedroom is the more iconic scene. So that's the one that I guess stuck with me. But he first looks at the bathroom. And then, as you mentioned earlier, he hears something or senses something behind him in the main bedroom, and he slowly turns around. Now, after having been through this traumatic experience led by what we assume is an alien intelligence, what's behind him? And he turns so slowly, and there's no noise. Everything is dead silent. There's no music this time, nothing. So it's that psychological terror of what's in the room with me. And he turns around, and of course he sees himself, but an older version of himself, even older than he was coming out of the portal. But he's in a smoking jacket or a bathrobe, having a leisurely meal, lunch or dinner. What does this all mean? What's happening? What's going on here?
So they don't make eye contact. He doesn't make eye contact with himself, right? So he's in the spacesuit and he sees the back
himself
of his
eating.
head.
He sees himself eating,
yeah.
But they never look at each other.
Right. And then the man at the table, the Bowman at the table in the smoking jacket, senses something.
Right.
You see the back of his head, and he kind of goes,
yeah. Yeah.
And then he looks and there's nothing there, but he gets up out of his chair to investigate.
And it's this kind of brilliant way of, again, how should I say it? Kubrick's keeping you off balance. He's keeping you completely confused as to what's happening here. You don't know what to make of it. And when you're watching the movie in real time, you have no clue. It's only later when you come out that you have to, you're like, you got to think about it, or you got to watch it again, or you got to watch it again and again, or you got to read somebody else's interpretation in the magazine as to what happened.
Yeah.
So is the hotel room a zoo? Is he being kept there in what the alien intelligence assumes is an environment that is a natural environment for his species?
Right.
Is it in his mind? Is the room not physically real, but it's something that's happening in his mind? How much time is elapsing between the time that one version of himself looks at another version? Is it real time, or is a lot of time? Is he living out is he like Picard in that great episode of TNG where he lives an entire other existence?
The inner light.
Yeah, the inner light. Is it like that? We really can't be sure. We don't know. It's not really important. But one of those things is happening.
It's a dreamscape. So, I don't know if I actually was talking about a lot of this stuff today. was talking about the idea of the human zoo as a possible explanation for the Fermi paradox.
Hmm.
The idea of like lucid dreaming, which I experimented with a couple times, and not even like intention, but like just do you ever like eat too much pasta, lay down on the couch and just have one of those like great naps, and
Mm.
you're like you got the radio on or a television
Oh
on,
yeah, I've
and
had
you
them.
fall asleep, but you're lightly dreaming,
Yep.
and you have a dream that lasts a week in the dream, but you're on the same track of the song when you wake up.
You're
I have no
disoriented.
way to explain how that happens,
Uh-huh.
but that's what's
It's altered
going on.
consciousness.
That's what's going on in this scene
Yeah.
to me.
I think that's a good interpretation.
And you know, when he turns to investigate where he just was, the earlier version of the spacesuit, it's almost like an echo of a psychic echo of the past.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so we're getting a sense of time. We're getting a sense of distorted time. You know, not human.
What a brilliant scene. A scene that when I first saw it, I came out thinking, I don't know what the hell that was. What really? I came out thinking, what is the meaning of the white hotel room? But now, you know, it's 30 plus years since the first time I saw it, and I've seen it, you know, many, many times since then. Now it all seems pretty straightforward. But what he did was he basically tackled the problem of, how do I show what a dream is like? And the example you just gave is perfect. I mean, he's literally showing you what a version of a dream is like in this mind-bending location after you've just been transported either backwards in time, forwards in time, across the universe,
Timeless space.
timeless area where time has no meaning. Any of these
Right.
things are a possibility.
We don't know what's going on.
You've been converted to pure energy. You exist only as thought.
Right.
Any of these possibilities exist. And in fact, Clark was kind of concrete about that in talking about what are the possibilities of wormholes, being transported. What's the evolutionary endpoint? What could it be? Could it be that beings could evolve to pure energy or pure thought? All of these things. So this end scene kind of summarizes all of those ideas in one incomprehensible package.
Yeah, it gives us the chance to do that for ourselves either now or later, because we can't think of all that stuff at the moment.
No,
these are all
absolutely not.
conclusions that sci-fi writers have come up with over the years. And you know, my friend today, I think he was a little reluctant when we were talking about the Fermi paradox, because he's more of like, he wants to be taken seriously as a cosmologist, you know, and having a cosmology. And I said, yeah, but we can talk about this stuff. This is speculative. This is what fiction writers talk about. This is what serious scientists talk about. It's just an idea. It's just a you know, it's been done countless times. I mean, there's one count that there's 75 possible solutions for the Fermi paradox. You know, these are thought experiments. You know, let's just run with it. You know, let's just run with it. You know, like it's not like somebody's going to sit in judgment and like, oh my God, you think that human beings can become pure thought? Oh my God. You know, it's like, that's been done. Star Trek, freaking the Twilight Zone. Like it's all been done. Like, you know, it's not any new. It doesn't mean you're some new age guru, you know, because you're like talking about this stuff, you know?
But again, all those other science fiction platforms that you mentioned are all super explicit. Right. It's actually, you're taking these incredible concepts and kind of making them almost boring, you know, and 2001 doesn't do that.
Well, it's like the shark in Jaws. He had trouble, you know, Spielberg had trouble with the machine. He was going to show the shark a lot more.
Yeah.
Much better movie without it.
Right.
Same with Alien.
So a writer that I like, Harlan Ellison.
Oh yeah.
He would always talk about, he would write about one of his favorite movies from when he was a kid, Cat People. And the director Val Lewton, who had no money and was on the hook to write these or shoot these horror films. No money, no budget, no technology. What do? You never show them.
Yeah.
You show shadows, you suggest everything that happens off screen. which is
Shadows are way more scary than makeup.
absolutely psychological terror is really it. And that's actually one of the other very unsettling aspects of the end scene with the white room. I can't think of anything more terrifying than to be in a prison that would look like an old-fashioned French hotel.
It's very French.
Yeah.
It's very French. I want to get in a little bit of the symbolism before we
Oh,
jump.
well, you mentioned the breaking of the glass.
Yeah.
That's how Kubrick makes the transition from middle-aged Bowman to the really elderly Bowman. He knocks over the glass.
Because of his clumsiness?
I don't know. What do you think?
I wasn't thinking about that. That's really great. Well, first I wanted to say something about shapes. So we've been talking about the obelisk. We've been talking about rectangular shapes. Rectangular shapes meaning like either the alien intelligence mostly, or artificial intelligence. In the case of Hal's kind of both, right? So like Hal is the rectangle, but he's also the circle.
It's also circle, yeah.
So the circle implies an eye, right?
Oh, very strongly.
And of course, we see Bowman's eye when we're going through the Stargate, right? And on the table, this may be a stretch, but that's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for.
On the table, the serving trays are rectangular with lids, but the plate is round. And it's like, to me, the round is the human symbol, right? And the rectangle is the alien symbol. So it's like the aliens are providing him with food. He takes it presumably from those trays, puts it on his round plate, and then it becomes. I mean, I know I'm really reaching here, but I don't think that there's a misplaced object in that room. I think that Kubrick put every single object in that room for a purpose.
I tend to agree with you only because everything else that he did was so deliberate. Nothing in any shot that he did appears to be casual. And people that worked with him on this film talk about this a lot, that it's often turned into a cartoonish version of him that he was obsessive.
Right.
No, he was
deliberate.
The way they describe it is that he was not obsessive. It's that he knew what he wanted.
Yeah.
And he wanted his people to deliver exactly what he asked for.
I admire that.
Right. So that supports your idea that in a scene, particularly a scene that is as sparsely populated with objects as the end room scene is, I would have to imagine that everything was considered, not placed randomly, not chosen randomly.
Well, those chairs look really darn comfortable, I have to tell you. I don't have a chair like that in my house. Yeah. The bed looks really comfortable too.
The bed does look pretty comfortable, although it's a bit large for my taste.
The food looks really good, right? Like it's like a full plate of food that he's tucking into there, man.
Yes.
Like he is having a meal, right?
Yes.
What?
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah,
I have a different memory of that end sequence. So he's eating as the middle stage Bowman in the jacket.
Yeah.
I feel like I remember one where he was really elderly, hairless, in the white suit, eating soup. Am I misremembering that? Or maybe that was in 2010. I don't know.
No, I don't think that's in 2010, but you've just sparked maybe a false memory. Like maybe now I'm inserting a memory that I didn't.
It could be a false memory, but the thing is that
I like that.
He cut 15 or 20 minutes out after the first showing.
Maybe we saw it in a different version, or
and
maybe
I'm just wondering.
cutscenes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's possible that I've seen an alternate version.
I'll have to go.
Everybody says there's no such thing as a director's cut of 2001, because when he shortened it, it was because he wanted to shorten it, because when he finally saw it with the audience, he realized there were certain sequences that just lasted too long.
Yeah, and he had to put an intermission in anyway because it was already 2.5 hours long.
Right.
How much longer could it be? The scene with the broken glass.
Mm-hmm.
So all right, we're talking Christ imagery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is this his last supper, right? I mean, it's his last meal.
Oh,
It's his last meal.
that's an interesting, his last meal.
I mean, is he a
Yeah.
condemned man, or is it just his last like sensual pleasure of eating before he becomes transformed into an otherworldly being?
Is it his last worldly act?
You know what I mean?
Oh, totally.
Because
Yeah, I
like,
mean,
what's more pleasurable?
he's
Obviously,
ingesting
he doesn't have a
food.
companion, so he can't have sex. But like,
He's ingesting food. It's a pleasurable sensation. He's got a good meal,
it's
as
primitive,
you observed.
but
It could be
it's.
like the Matrix, where it's like he's imagining he's having this meal. He's not, physically really having it.
I love that.
And the idea that this is an imagination, or a dream, it's not actually happening, also very likely. I love that idea, the Last Supper.
So, but that's not all. So he breaks the glass, right?
Yeah.
So it's not the only glass on the table, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, it never is. You got to have a water glass and a wine glass.
So which one does he break?
Yeah, that I didn't notice.
I did.
Wine. Is
Yeah.
it the wine?
You know how I know?
Uh-uh.
All right. So here's how I know. Now, I don't know. Maybe you can tell by the placement of the glasses. I'm not that,
Yeah,
I don't
I'd have to look
eat
it
with
up.
my pinky extended, so I don't know these things.
I try not to.
But he at one point he's eating and he takes the glass and he drinks
Mm-hmm.
and he looks at it,
He does. He regards it.
almost admiring it. Like,
Yes. Yep.
that's a
damn
really good glass of wine,
Yeah.
and puts
right.
it down. Because you don't do that with water. I mean, nowadays you might do it with wine.
Nah, that's a great
Nowadays
point.
you might go, well, that's Aquafina, but I really prefer San
No.
Pellegrino.
I always get tap water at the table. Thank you.
But that's a wine.
You're right. I remember, since I just watched it last night. You're right. He takes a moment and he looks at it and he does admire it.
Yeah.
So you're right. That is the wine glass.
So it's the wine glass.
That is Christ imagery.
He knocks it over, it breaks.
Yeah.
Right. So we all know what wine in the sacrament is Christ's blood, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
So he spills the blood, right?
Yeah.
And he is about to expire from his mortal existence and become something else, semi-divine, right?
Yes.
So for me, that's the Christ imagery for me in the scene. But it takes a lot of symbolism, and I don't know if that's there or not.
Who knows?
But that's me.
Who knows? I think that's a really cool, because really, why introduce the idea of eating into that entire sequence? It's an odd choice, because you could have had the entire room sequence without any kind of eating.
So I think there's a couple things going on here. It is, you have to espouse my theory that they're benevolent
right
aliens, and they are taking care of him. So they've given him very silk jackets, slippers.
Yeah, I always took that to mean
furniture, wonderful bed.
As far as they can tell,
food,
from either observing humans or being able to extract something from his memory,
which is what I'm thinking,
that they're like, this is what a human most wants. This would be
give
a great
this kid the best.
Yeah, it's be a great environment. He'll love it.
Let's make him the best bed. We'll get him the best dog bed. We'll give him a little chew toy. We'll give him like the best. We'll feed him Calcan instead of that dry stuff. I don't even know if they make Calcan anymore. But we'll really pamper this guy. It's his last day before we make him the progenitor of the next version of his species.
Yeah, this all makes complete sense to me. One small detail that I don't know is it's particularly meaningful at all. It might have just been a particular bent that he was interested in at the time. Do you notice how on the space station the ceiling is completely illuminated when they're walking through the curved part, but in the end sequence room the floor is illuminated in pretty much exactly the same way?
No, I noticed the floor was illuminated, but I did not notice the ceiling in contrast to that.
Oh, in the space station, when he's walking through the corridor, he encounters the Russians. All of the lighting is 100% of the ceiling is illuminated in exactly the same way that the floor of the room in the end sequence is.
That is awesome.
So uplighting, lighting from above versus lighting from below. So, I mean, that's kind of an interesting thing that Kubrick chose to light the floor in that sequence rather than the ceiling.
Why?
Why would you do that?
I
It's
love the idea
it's
of lighting the floor. I just
it's
thought it was
so
beautiful. But
it's so counterintuitive because, and it's a big pain in the ass
what is it?
to have the stage people construct a set
Yeah.
that's going to be illuminated from below.
Yeah.
Is a bit of an ordeal. So it's something that he really wanted it for a reason. Was it just to make it seem other, weird, to further drive in that sense of dreamlike state?
I mean, I could go out on a limb here.
Go there.
So the lighting, well, it could be very basic. It could be a motion of, it could be a symbolized motion. So man is here, the light is here. Now man has risen above. So he's becoming something else. It's an ascension, maybe in a symbolic way.
I love it.
Just throwing it out there, like heaven, like he's below heaven, now he's above heaven. I don't know. I mean, I'm throwing that's
again, awesome. it's the beauty of that sequence is that there are many possible.
I never noticed that. That's wonderful. But one thing that you reminded me, going back to the space station, is that when Dr. Floyd goes through customs and he talks to the computer for the first time we ever see him interacting with the computer or anybody interacting with computer in this movie, the computer asks him to like state his name, his nationality, and something
Christian name and surname.
Nice.
Yeah.
And they use the word Christian.
Yes. And the reason I know that is that it really stuck out to me.
Wow.
Because I think that if you said to a lot of people today, what's your Christian name, they wouldn't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty wild. That passed me right up. But he actually says thank you to the computer.
He does.
Did you notice that?
Yeah.
So it's our humanity reflected on this device.
Yeah, and I took that to be that we so reflexively say certain things as part of a trivial politeness,
right?
That it's just something that happened that he didn't even think twice about.
Exactly, and that's the point. I think is that it's part of our nature to have these niceties, to have this courtesy.
Yeah, and it's another one of these meaningless interactions that almost all the characters have.
Yeah, and it's a contrast to what happens with Hal later,
Right.
So
then he reaches his final stage. He's clearly on the literal deathbed, and the monolith appears once more.
Yeah.
The monolith is the consistent thread from the beginning of the movie all the way to the very end.
The monolith's the main character, I guess.
The monolith, in some ways, the monolith is the main character that has no speaking lines.
Well, it does. It's
yeah, but it's so funny now that we've talked this all through, and because I've seen the movie so many times now, that the end scene just seems very obvious. And when I first saw it, it was totally baffling to me. I mean, it's like I almost wrote off the whole end of the movie because I don't know what that was. That was just weirdness. And now, after having watched it so many times and talked about it, I'm like, yeah, it's obvious. It's very clear what's happening. The only thing we're really debating are some possibilities around the edges.
Right.
No,
I agree. But see, we've watched it. Remember what you said about listening to a song over and over? You got the juice out of it.
Yeah.
We got the juice. I got the juice out of this movie. And you did too. And it's because I was at breakfast with a friend Saturday, and I told him, I said, he said, what are your plans for this week? I said, I'm gonna be talking about 2001: A Space Odyssey. And I said, what a great job I have. And he's like, yeah. He's like, tell me about that. He's like, what happens at the end? Yeah. And I just basically gave him the version, like, well, he
Reader's Digest version.
Transferred and he's transformed into the Star Child, and he becomes a
Next form of
Yeah,
life.
what does that mean? I'm like, well, it's the future of humanity. He's like the first of the ascension into another life form or a version of ourselves. And he's like, oh, yeah, I guess I never thought of it that way before.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? That's what it is. No, I'm just kidding. You know what I mean? Like, it's just,
well,
it seems so obvious now, but
there's still something interesting about the very end when the Star Child appears. He seems to be back on Earth. So I'm also very interested in the fact that they really went out of their way to make a fetus that looked like the actor.
Yeah.
It looks, I mean, the eyes are unmistakable. They did a great job. If he had ever existed as a very advanced fetus, he would have looked just like that. But he's back on Earth. So he's not simply going to exist as the next form of humanity. He's taking it back to Earth.
Yeah, what's he gonna do?
I don't know.
So
but do you agree he's back over, he's at least looking over Earth?
Absolutely. I mean, that is
I don't know what
supposed to be Earth.
We don't know what his intentions are.
I don't see any comments, but it's blue and white, and it's meant to be Earth, in my opinion.
I think so too.
I don't think it's meant to be an Earth-like non-Earth. I think it's Earth.
And I think that is the most ambiguous part of the entire film. That's the part where I don't even think Kubrick had an idea. I think he's just like, we're gonna show him in the next stage of what humanity is to become, and that's all I know.
Oh man, I mean, if you want to go with the Christ imagery, you could go like, second coming. You could talk about he's going to reign over the earth. I mean, you get into like some really like theological stuff if you wanted to, but I agree it's not there. I think I think that's intentionally left ambiguous. But I believe it's the innocence in the expression on the child's face means that it's going to be a really good thing.
So here's the interesting thing about advancing to the next major jump in human evolution. Right. It's alien mediated.
Yeah.
It's not somewhere we would get on our own.
Right.
We're being very closely overseen and shepherded by an alien intelligence.
Yeah. So it is either a human zoo, or at least it's a garden.
Yeah.
It's a garden. Yeah. So what it is it's the universal gardener. They go around, they plant seeds, and there's all these little experiments going on. And then they come back and they go, let's pull a weed here.
Yeah. How's it been going?
Pretty promising.
How's it going this week?
Fruit.
Yeah.
Let's put a stake here, tie it up. We'll come back in a little while and see what happens after it rains. That kind of thing.
So I think that he, in things that he said about the movie, he's very pleased about the ambiguity that many places in the movie have that allow for this kind of intellectual exploration. And a movie can do that because this action can take place visually, and you don't have to talk about it. Now, this is the problem that the book has.
Yeah, you tried doing this in a novel?
I don't find the book very satisfying at all. It's a completely different experience. As a story, it's not that fascinating as a written word story. It doesn't have that I'm being transported into a visual painting the way we've described, with the music that's paired with it that we've described. So I think 2001 as a book is a failure, where it's a great success as a movie.
I would agree. I feel, this goes way back now. This goes like back 20 some years when I did my first painting. I remember talking to you about it at one point and said, well, when's it done? And then you said, yeah, that's a really great question. And, but the reason I did the painting in the first place, I had this idea in my head for a long time, and it was not coming out in words.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't the right medium for it. And I'm not saying that I succeeded in expressing what I wanted to express in that very first painting. I'm pretty sure I didn't get anywhere.
No, I'd be shocked if you did.
I can't even imagine that's even close. But when I look at it, I get a sense of the idea that I had and was trying to express. I don't think anybody else would ever get it. Maybe a little tiny hint because of the sailing ship, but like, that's about it. But like I said, it's not something that was going to be a short story. It wasn't something that's going to be even a vignette. It just wasn't conducive to the English language, or maybe spoken or written language, and it just isn't what it is. So finding the right medium for the right story and being able to express it in that medium is true. That's, to me, is the definition of true artistry. And I think that's what Kubrick accomplishes here in his film.
I couldn't agree more. There are certain thoughts that are that feel inexpressible, and we think that communication. Well, we have languages. We have the English language. It's the most descriptive language ever created. Of course, every language claims that, and it's probably true for most of them. But again, it's a mediated form of communication, because we can't do a mind meld. We can't share electrons from one set of neurons to another. The only tool we have the only tools we have are these crude tools. Words, as sophisticated as they are still crude in some regards, because there are some thoughts and feelings which are so difficult to express. Sometimes they can only be experienced. And the only way you can share what the other person feels is to experience the same thing, maybe at the same time. And then you can both look at each other and know that there's no way to really talk about this. And you know what? We don't really need to.
You know what? That is so weird, because I was just going to say that. Have you ever had an experience where you're sitting across from somebody, you both see the same thing, and you both look at each other and go,
yeah. I think
we
most
both
people
know what has, we don't even have to say a word. We know what
don't have to
happened just now.
Right.
And we only have to like say anything. We laugh about it. We know what happened.
Right.
And that was that.
But there are those moments in time that are shared, but then there are spiritual moments, experiential moments. Those are the things that are most difficult to box in with
think about
words.
This what I'm wearing right now. I wore this at altitude. We
Yeah.
wore this jumping out of an airplane.
Right.
I remember you saying at one point, I had to jump out of an airplane because you guys all did it, and I was never going to be able to know what that was until I did it. Right.
Right.
It's like that. It's experiential, you know?
It is like that. And that's a great example. I could write a story about what it's like to jump out of an airplane. I could draw pictures about what it's like to jump out of an airplane. None of those things will be what it's like to jump out of an airplane.
I wrote a story about
It
jumping
won't.
out of an airplane. I thought it was pretty good. I never published that, but it's only
That doesn't mean you shouldn't try.
I don't know
And
if
that's what a lot of
anybody
art is
that's
about.
never done it is going to get anything out of it. They'll get something out of it, but they obviously, like you said, it's not going to be the same experience.
Well, there's so many paintings that it's the old debate of, if I look at a painting in a museum and it just has a title, you know, like this is called Spoon at Midday, you know, and it's a dog.
Yeah.
I know what that means. I know what I felt on that day that compelled me to form that image and then put it on a canvas. But if I don't have that little placard that's usually next to the painting, and that's particularly true with the more abstract you get.
Right.
There are some abstract paintings that when you read a book and it says, well, the artist was going through this at this moment in time in his life, and his daughter had just died in a car accident, and he had just met with this artist and was influenced by these movements. Then you look at some of these pages, like, I see that. I see elements of that in this painting. That if the painting only existed in isolation, it would be meaningless. So the visuals are not on their own capable of transmitting the information and the feeling. They need to be buttressed by this additional context. And then when you put the two together, you get not a complete package, but a much more complete package. You know?
Yeah, I could see that.
And I find sometimes find that my appreciation for those works goes up.
Right. Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd look at it and say, it doesn't really do anything for me.
I always thought that if I ever did an opening, I would write, but see, I'm more of a writer. So I would write an explanation of, or at least, or maybe a poem, or maybe just a few lines or something to evoke something that in addition. And a lot of times on the back of my canvases, on some of the canvases, I've done that. And I write on my pottery all the time. And like, I don't know, it's just, but that's that was my primary form of communication, artistic communication.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I rely on that a lot, even in the other media, I still rely on that. But yeah, pure abstract I have friends that are abstract artists. I just went to actually a gallery opening. It was one of the first post-COVID type things that I did. And it was there was a lot of abstract art, and I found it very stimulating, but I think it was just because I was out among people again. It was like, yay. But it was, but when she explained to me what she was trying to do, it made a lot more sense when I heard her explanation as the artist's explanation.
There are all kinds of art that are like that. I mean, I'm not a big poetry fan, but some poetry that I've heard, which I find to be inscrutable, again, when you hear the artist or the poet say, well, I was going through this, and this is what inspired me to write this, then it clicks. I'm like, oh, I get it. I see where you were coming from. Now this poem makes sense to me. And it has more of an emotional resonance than it would have had you not told me that story.
Yeah. I've also heard poetry that I've read spoken and not liked it as much after I've heard it spoken, because
that's interesting.
I have a voice in my head when I'm reading the poem. And when I heard somebody else do, like Dylan Thomas, I was like, it was too sing-songy. I'm like, this is not right. However, when I saw Back to School and I saw Rodney Dangerfield do it, I was like, that was better. That was not the version that I had in my head, but it was way better than the one that my English teacher did, which was like, do not go gentle in this good night. I'm like,
rage against the dying of the light.
Yeah, but the way Rodney did it was great. Like, rage against the dying. What does that mean? I don't take crap from nobody.
So that's a little joke between my wife and I, that when we're out and about, inevitably we see a woman who's dressing far younger than her years and refuses to age gracefully, and we condense that poem all the way down to one word. We say, she's raging.
Rage. That's a good one.
She's raging.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, like, and then one thing I didn't want to gloss over, I was thinking, is that, the inscrutability of certain works of art, but the emotions that we attach to them for whatever reason. We were talking about Shostakovich earlier, right? So Shostakovich number 5, I have seen performed live several times, and I've listened to, although not very often, because it has this effect on me. For whatever reason, the third movement.
Why only strings in the third movement?
Why only strings in the third movement? I get really like melancholic when I hear the third movement. It just
it's because
it's heartbreaking, and I have no idea why.
It is heartbreaking,
and I have no negative memory associated with it. It's just the music.
It's one of the So I will say that
me that way.
I will say that I feel that visual art and some word-based works are fundamentally different. There is, and this is one of the great mysteries of human life to me. Why is it that certain notes and chords arranged in a certain way elicit happiness, sadness, excitedness? Why should that be? They're just sounds, and sounds put together in the right way trigger emotions. That doesn't make any sense. But that third movement of that symphony, it is utterly heartbreaking, and
it's so despondent.
There's something about it that there's lots of sad music in the world.
Yeah.
But there is something about that movement So you know where that was used? Getting
Mm-mm.
back to Carl Sagan. So Cosmos, it wasn't just a unique story on my part. It exposed a lot of people to a lot of music they'd never heard before. It was kind of a launching point for Vangelis for a lot of people, and a bunch of other stuff.
Mm.
Shostakovich featured in Cosmos, and that piece, that heartbreaking piece, was used to highlight the sad plight of Kepler. He was trying to fit all the perfect solids inside one of another,
Yeah.
using a physical model and some thread. And of course, despite all the other genius things he did, this was a completely bonkers idea that was not
Right.
grounded in any kind of science.
Platonic
And
solids.
and that music played in the background,
Did it?
which was perfectly fitting, because he was a genius and he did many great science, had many great scientific breakthroughs, but he was committed to this dead end,
Yeah.
pathetic pursuit. And that music fit perfectly in that heartbreaking sense of, look at this great man wasting his time on this futile effort.
You have to watch that. That's
Yeah.
funny. I don't remember that. I remember the scene. I don't remember the music.
Oh yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's where it comes from. Maybe that's the first time I encountered it and it had something to do with it. But that scene doesn't like make me cry.
No,
But I remember sitting in the in Heinz Hall and weeping. And like,
you were touched.
what the heck is wrong?
You were
Like,
touched by that music.
by music, by
Yeah.
pure music and nothing else associated with it.
It was, music is emotion. It doesn't need context to carry emotion. Amazingly, unlike those other forms. Amazingly.
Now, if I'm ever going to run into battle, number 8 symphony, movement number 3 is gonna, like, that's my battle song right there.
Absolutely.
Like, I'll be invincible, right? Just give me a pitchfork. I'll go up against a Panzer,
Another great Shostakovich piece that was introduced to me, again, through Cosmos. I'm sorry, just one moment. Is Symphony number 11, movement 1. And that piece was not available for years. I couldn't find it anywhere. For years I searched for it, and I knew what it was because it was on the Cosmos soundtrack, which I had as an LP. And it says Shostakovich Symphony number 11, Stokowski, RCA Records.
What's
blah,
the
blah, blah.
name? They most of them have names. What did he name that one?
No, that one doesn't have a name.
Oh, okay.
It sort of does. I don't know what the name is, but the basis for it is, it's the failed 1905 Russian Revolution.
Okay.
And that piece, which is used in the very first episode of Cosmos to give you the sense of cosmic grandeur as he's working his way down from the galactic level, down to from the local group to our galaxy, to our solar system, and then eventually to Earth, which then bursts forth with Beethoven's Pastoral. But when he's in the wastes of space, it's movement 1 of Shostakovich Symphony number 11.
I have it. I have.
It's just this short snippet on the Cosmos LP.
Yeah.
And I desperately wanted to find that for a number of years. And when CDs began to really get common, this would be about 1986. It came out, and there was only one recording, and it was a 1957 recording by Stokowski.
Wow.
A famous music director. And I listened to that a lot. And the first movement is the Palace Square, and it's the calm before
the bread riots,
before rioting starts and shooting begins.
Oh, is it? Okay, so in 1905, that was when the peasants come out and they all have pictures of the Tsar, and they're parading saying, "Please help us, Father," and the soldiers turned on them. Like, it was going to be a peaceful demonstration. It was going to be a plea to their monarch. It was a respectful. It wasn't going to be a violent demonstration. However, It was
Mhm.
misinterpreted by whomever,
Mhm.
and then it became a bloody mess.
Mhm.
One of those
So
terrible tragedies.
there's a piece of music that, on the one hand, if you just listen to that movement, it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. Um, but when you know what it represents, that it's that piece before, these bloody events which would then follow, because that movement turns into this wild cacophony that just says murder.
Like Guernica,
Yeah,
just
exactly.
in music.
How do we capture the madness of war in art? And it's like that.
Yeah.
So you know a lot about Shostakovich. You know about the history. I highly recommend that symphony to you.
Well,
Now the
you can
clue
have all 15 in various forms. I'll have to look and see if I have 11.
there's
now.
a trick though, because I've heard multiple interpretations of Shostakovich by other conductors, not least of which being one of his sons.
Really?
And not all are great. So the Haitink version of Symphony 8 is the best I've ever heard.
I know you love hiking.
I've heard other versions that are either too fast for me or too slow for me.
Yeah.
And I've heard alternate versions of the 11th, and nothing compares to me like that 1957
I'll look
version.
for it.
And it's an excellent recording. It's unusually good for the time at which it was recorded. It really holds up. And if you have a good stereo system, there is just ground shaking bass, because when the attack starts, Shostakovich, he has crazy instrumentation. So he brings in these tubas and they go, and they go through this. They start as low as they can. They go as high as they can. And it's just, what I see is somebody's eyes rolling in the back of their head, and it's incredibly powerful, and it's earth-shaking bass for a recording from the 1950s. It's really fantastic.
Do you
So
have that
yeah,
on LP or do you have that on CD?
I have it on CD.
Nice.
I have it on CD, and
And then I
I
can get it. That's
don't
cool.
know where it is online, but
I'm sure I can find it.
yeah, hope it's out there somewhere. But yeah, you got to hear it.
Cool. It gives me something to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
I actually was at a little library in my neighborhood. There's little like nest boxes, and
Yeah, I got one of those too.
And I found a Miles Davis and a OMD, Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark.
Yeah, I like some OMD.
And a Pet Shop Boys from 1993. I was like, what? I'm taking all three of these. Thank you. And they're in my car now. And I'm like,
wow.
I forgot I have a CD player in my car because I've been using, Bluetooth. And
it's staying with the theme of the physical music experience. I bought a CD player.
Yeah.
Because
for $25.
No, it was actually I bought a nice one. It's a Denon, and I needed to get one that wouldn't stand out. So I got one that is shaped like a book, and it works vertically. So I just shoved it in the bookcase. You can't even tell it's there.
Nice.
Because I had all these CDs that I had no means of playing them. And there are some things that I have on CD that are really actually not available otherwise.
Yeah.
There are some of those things.
Oh yeah.
For instance, I was looking today earlier to get myself in the mood. I wanted to get that Ligeti through iTunes. They don't have it.
No.
So I have the CD that I bought probably 20 years ago.
Oh, I am so disappointed with Alexa. She's going to hear her name now. She did. And
she's looking a little fat.
Every time I've been messing with her, this is going to be a whole series of YouTube videos of me just messing with her. But I'll ask for something and she'll play it once. Okay. So like today, it was like Rapper's Delight or something like that by the Sugarland Gang. And for some reason, I just wanted to like try to memorize the lyrics. And I know what it was. It was something about, somebody was talking about humility. And I wanted to use the line, I don't want to brag, I don't want to boast, but I like hot butter on my breakfast toast. And I couldn't remember. I knew there was a silly line in there that would be a wonderful answer to like, what is humility? And I would just whip that line out and just as a nonsensical answer. But she played it once. I'm personifying the computer now.
I noticed
like
that you're
hell,
gendering her.
just like hell.
Yeah.
And then the second time she said, Sugar Lantern Gang is not available on Amazon Prime. However, if you sign up for blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh my God, how do I shut that announcement off?
Yeah.
So you never say that again,
Yeah.
But
I don't want ads to run.
I don't know how to do that. But she's trying to browbeat me into paying $25 a month or whatever Amazon wants for unlimited music. But I'm like, you just played it.
Yeah.
How can you not find the free version again? Like, what is this? Like a tease? Like you'll play anything the first time?
And you know how it is. It turns into a hunt. And like, I'm sure I can find a version of this on some platform.
Yeah.
And then you do find it somewhere and it's on a Czechoslovakian website. You're not sure what's going to happen if you press play. Is it going to download an infectious macro? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's not Napster anymore. I mean, it's all through YouTube. They can't get any viruses by watching a YouTube.
No, YouTube you don't have to worry about, but
yeah.
But there are some things even YouTube doesn't have because they're so obscure that some kid couldn't even be bothered or has never heard of it before. You know what I found on YouTube that I was very happy about, something that I had forgotten about for years, and I think perhaps you had it. Carlos Alomar, Dream Generator.
Oh, really? Did I?
Out of print. Nobody's got it. Checked on YouTube. Whole album's there. So Carlos Alomar was a session guitarist used frequently by Bowie.
Nice.
And he did his own solo album in the mid to late 80s, which I listened to a lot. I thought I got it from you. Maybe I bought it. Maybe I bought it and then I got rid of it.
I don't remember, but
I might have bought it. I might have bought it and gotten rid of it.
I still am a big Bowie fan, but I was like a big Bowie fan for a while.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
I eulogized him in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, actually.
Well, as well, you should have.
They printed it.
So that was around you can cut this part out because it's political.
Yeah.
When the former president came into office, you might recall, shortly after that, Bowie died.
Yes.
And there was a one-panel cartoon. Somebody had modified a Peanuts cartoon. It was Charlie Brown with one speech balloon saying, my enemies are in power and my heroes are dead.
Yeah. Well,
that became that one single panel cartoon became my anthem for the next 40
That was your
years.
battle cry. So I almost gave you another battle cry today. I was trying to get Alexa to do this for me, and she did this to me. That's what it was. It was yes. I wanted to listen to It Can Happen.
It can happen to you. It can happen to me. It can happen to everyone eventually.
She played it the first time and then she wouldn't play it for me again. So I went to YouTube and I tried to pull up the lyrics because I wanted to get just the lyrics, but instead somebody had put scenes to it was an unofficial music video, basically. Like generic clip art and put it up.
Seen a lot of those.
They split up all the lines, but I was trying to get a one capture and it was look up.
Look down. Look out. Look around.
Look around. I always remember us doing that little thing, but
charge the common ground.
Yeah. Well,
round and round, we're living in gravity.
That's chess, man. You got to charge the common ground. Take those squares.
We shake so hard. We love so long. When we reach, we believe in eternity.
The random lyrics generator.
I love those lyrics.
It's like a bunch of dice. You just throw them out on the table. And
so
spirit, brotherhood,
love,
something about the stars.
Stars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Soul, maybe.
Yeah.
That's it.
Love.
It is the random John Anderson music generator. And my wife has observed that I don't really care for lyrics because when I sing things, I tend to mimic the noise of little accent pieces like cymbals or she's like, you pick up on that. It's like I listen to the lyrics, I sing the lyrics. I'm like, I didn't really care about the lyrics. I don't know what they are most of the time.
That's pretty cool.
Yes, lyrics I know because they're not particularly meaningful. It's just a vocal art. It's just
Right.
John Anderson is just using his voice as another instrument, and there's no particular meaning.
Well, there's that, but there's also,
not for some.
It's also, I mean, it's not a narrative meaning. Again, it can be, you could actually say that he's trying to do something that Kubrick did really well, but he's painting with words, and he's using words that are emotionally charged.
He is,
so that he doesn't have to express a complete thought. He can just bring out maybe hope,
and that's so.
Or
you can't Yes exists as some kind of crappy cover band now. They've got like one original member. But Anderson stopped doing it, probably around 2001 is when their last album came out. It was really good. And then he didn't do it anymore. But I think one of the reasons that Yes works for me, the reason I didn't get into Genesis, I like Genesis like anybody. But I didn't have this emotional attachment to Genesis the way I did with Yes. And what appealed to me about Yes is that Anderson's lyrics were, even if they were nonsensical, they were relentlessly optimistic and feel good.
Yes.
They were positive vibes. And I'm not a positive vibe guy, but I always liked the positive feeling I got from those songs.
Mm-hmm.
They were all uplifting. They were never maudlin,
not
pitying,
too many depressing
angry. No, there really isn't.
No,
aren't.
I mean, there's a lot that I don't understand, but like, I don't listen to lyrics like in and around the lake, mountains come out of the sky.
What do they do?
Stand there. I have no idea what that means, but it doesn't make me upset or depressed or.
Hey, 24 before my love and I'll be there. He did do a lot of drugs when writing those lyrics.
Well, Chicago,
that's part of it.
So, what was the Chicago
25 or 64? Yeah.
What the hell is that?
I don't know. See, it's one of the. If there was a plaque next to that song in the museum that explained it.
He stayed up really late at night and he was writing lyrics, and he looked at this. He was like, "It's 25 to 4. Wait, it's 6 to 4. Oh wow."
Well, does anybody really know what time it is?
Must have dozed off there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But no,
I really care.
When I moved from Pittsburgh, I listened to Yes a lot.
Yeah.
And I really do think it's because it had that.
You're buttressing your emotions.
It had that kind of like support, uplift, positivity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I did that. I do that. Well, I've used Star Wars with that for, so many. It's like, well, I could be depressed or I could just watch Star Wars and be happy. It has no real bearing on anything, and I like it, and it's just very light, and I can,
But that's art.
It's escapism is what it is.
But that's what art is. And so art is either, if you're making the art, it's a form of expression for you, but as a viewer of art, as a participant in art, it's a way to transcend and rise above the tedium of daily existence.
Well, to tie it into something we were talking about earlier, which was one of my favorite lines from a poem, which is this beauty and terror, which I've actually painted on a slate in front of my house right now. I don't know how many people have walked by it.
I was going to say, your neighbors must be curious.
Beauty and terror. Well, it's not the only one. There's other ones. So it's like, have a nice day, beauty and terror.
Well, you gotta, it's like the Twilight Zone, Burma shave signs in the Twilight Zone.
These guys they probably walk past like, this guy's schizophrenic or something. What the hell's his problem? But it's from a von Rilke poem. This dude was an Austrian, he is.
Of course.
Austrian, Russian, it's like, for crying out loud, the guy was schizophrenic. But the whole thing goes, and I've used this as a mantra. It says, let it all happen to you. Beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. So if I can remember that then no matter what emotion I'm experiencing, and I don't have a lot of negative emotions, I'm a pretty positive guy, but everybody has them from time to time.
Of course, you'd be strange if you didn't.
Yeah, and any intelligent creature has them. But like, whenever I have one of those existential crises, I just go like, this is gonna pass. All I gotta do is wait it out. So let's go listen to let's go watch some Star Wars. Let's just wait it out. It's all gonna pass. And usually it has more to do with my blood sugar. It has to do with anything else. Oh, usually if I have a good meal or a snack or something, I'm like, oh, okay, I was just hungry.
You were hangry.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not a reader of Foucault or the existentialists, but my understanding is that they were plumbing the depths or grappling with the terror of existence. There's really, to be
I know.
To be a self-aware being and to be alone with your thoughts is at a certain level to experience terror. Or even if it's not terror, there's the pain of existence. There is a pain of just being. What should I be doing? What am I doing now? Is what I'm doing worthy? Am I wasting my time? Do I need more time? I should be doing something else. I'm bored. Nothing in life interests me anymore. These are all thoughts of existence that most people, if they aren't narcotizing themselves with modern entertainment,
right?
These are ideas that everybody has at one point or another.
Yeah, I mean, those are ideas that they're all self-indulgent, self-pitying ideas that if you indulge in them for too long, they're fine to have, but they can all be defeated by don't take yourself so darn seriously.
Well, there's another way of saying that.
If you're a philosopher for the fact that you want to be deep and you wanted people to go ahead, get all moody, but be careful, because sometimes you can't dig your way out of those emotions, right? That can be really dangerous. That can be a real cycle,
I completely agree. And my take on it is that you can cut all this. The fundamental, because we're just talking now.
Yeah.
For me, the fundamental nature of the universe is that there is no inherent meaning, and that if you spend your life chasing inherent meaning, you're going to end up as one of those extremely disappointed philosophers. So a lot of philosophers and existentialists, I think, will tell you the key to happiness is not to chase it or to seek meaning, but merely to live and live hard. So there was, I don't know who wrote this. It might've been Kurt Vonnegut. I don't know. Something along the lines of when you eat your food, eat the hell out of it. When you breathe deeply.
Well, Vonnegut was manic depressive, so he was probably one of his manic phases when he wrote.
I don't think it was Vonnegut, but it was some modern.
Doesn't sound like Vonnegut.
Some modern quipster who was just trying to get across the idea of live now, be now. Seneca. It's now.
Seneca, live immediately.
Live immediately.
I love that phrase.
But it's the balance between acknowledging that many millions, billions of human beings who have thought about these questions before us have reached the same conclusion, that there is no inherent meaning if you're not a religious person, and that therefore make every effort to advantage yourself of what's happening now.
That's a liberating point, though. See, to me, I don't find that if life has no inherent meaning, if there is really no purpose, then that's completely liberating. That means that I can live for whatever I want, so I can create my own meaning.
Oh, right, and that's the other takeaway.
That's not the way the existentialists think, though.
Yeah, and I'm not well versed. I'm not well versed in the existentialists, but
most of them stop at the despair.
Yeah,
and they never come through it. I was going to jokingly quote the Moody Blues, one of their lesser known songs from that album that nobody listens to, which is the one with the X, where she's showing I forget the name of the album. It's
Oh, every good boy deserves favor.
no, it's one of the, it's oh shoot, why can't I remember what it's called? Anyway, it's called Under My Feet. The song is called Under My Feet.
Oh, I know. Under
You know
my
it?
feet.
Yeah,
I know it.
right. It's not one of their more popular songs, but he says the song starts with this like wonderful snare drum.
Yeah.
It's a hard life.
Yeah.
Never let yourself get down.
Yeah.
You may never get back. You may never ever turn around. And that's a cautionary. It's light, you know, the way they sing it.
Yeah.
It's in a high key register, and it's like, but that's
Well,
so
it's
true.
like when John Lennon sings "Help."
Yeah, right.
That's not a happy tune, but
No,
it's
it's not.
it's set to a happy melody.
That's not a good song. Yeah, it's not a happy song. But it's, you know, it's you negative thoughts breed negative thoughts. And so do positive thoughts. Positive thoughts breed the positive. You can look at anybody look at the same situation. Everybody gets something else out of it, you know, something different out of it. They bring their own experience to it. They look at it. It's like the Kubrick thing. It's like the end of the movie. You know, we see diamonds. I see alien, you know, an expression of alien intelligence. Other people see a geometric pattern, which represents the beauty of the universe. Somebody else sees, you know, special effects, you know, that they don't understand, you know, or, you know, somebody else says diamonds, you know, that's just ridiculous. Doesn't fit with anything else. You know, I don't like it. You know, they have a negative reaction to it. It's just, it's whatever you feel like that day, maybe, or whatever you bring to it, you know, and it's,
well, I mean, I feel as you do that I find it to be a liberating thought.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
They need to have some externally imposed meaning handed to them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it puts them on the hook to find meaning, and some people can't do it.
I think it comes from our tradition, our way of being educated. We're educated in order to achieve. We're told that we're being graded. You want to be the best. We're not told it's okay not to be the best. It's told you want to be the best. It's not like a B is good enough. No. 100%. That's the best you can do. And now even more than 100%, because there's A++++, or there's advanced placement courses. So instead of a 4.0, you get a 5.0. There's no upper limit to the achievement. And that's a nice ideal in theory, to have every kid be an overachiever. Completely unsustainable. Right. However, you grow up to be an adult and they're like, what is it? The next promotion, the next job, the next part of your career, the next this, the next that, the bigger car, the bigger house.
I believe this was succinctly summarized in a famous song we both know. Earth, school, work, death.
Yes. I love that song. And
no, but I think that's the wisdom. Yeah. That's the wisdom of middle age, that now I get it, that, you know, old people say, well, you know, you get smarter as you get older, and you're like, yeah, sure. You don't know how to operate a VCR.
Right.
But in fact, they're right, because all of these achievement goals, which you just enumerated, are things that are necessary for young people to feel, so that they don't simply become purposeless layabouts.
Well, that's true.
But on the other hand, most of those goals are completely artificial.
Yeah.
And when you attain them, they're often meaningless.
Yeah. They're not as satisfying as you think.
They're not as satisfying as you think. But not only that, once you've checked all the boxes off, then what? What's next?
That's the terrifying part, isn't it?
Because now what? I have everything I want. I have everything. There's nothing else that I want. Now what do I do?
I've done everything that I'm supposed to do. What do I want to do? Who am I?
Who am I?
But here's the thing.
What's my meaning?
It's not and then we have this silly analogy of the journey, right? So it's like life's a journey. Got to get there. Got to get to the next thing. Got to get to heaven. You got to get to, the end. You got to get to retirement. You got to get to.
You might not make it.
Well, I know a lot of guys that haven't made it.
You might not make it, and I do as well. You might not make it to any of those things. So my phrase is always, you never know what's going to happen when you get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
You might not get back in.
Mine is, it's not a journey, it's a dance.
Mm-hmm.
It's music. Life is music. You can dance to it. If you don't, you're missing the point.
I remember saying to Denise a few times that, maybe 10, 15 years ago, or more like 10 years ago, just these casual conversations like, it's weird because I did it. All this stuff that there was always another goal on the horizon, I attained them all. And it's not what I thought it would be. And nobody tells you what to do after that. And for the first time, there's no additional goal on the horizon. Now it's just work till retirement, so everybody has to figure that out for themselves. But that's kind of the dirty little secret, that when we're telling kids, when we're indoctrinating them for here's how to climb the ladder, we totally leave out that end part. Make sure that you have some inner core. Make sure that you have some true interests.
Well, yeah, I mean,
because if you think that the achievement ladder is going to satisfy you once you get to a certain age, you're mistaken.
I have a list I keep on the wall, and it's just things I've done. So like if I ever do get into one of those like days where I'm like, you're wasting your time, you should do something with your life, you're not the Pope, you're not the president, you're not the, all the negative self-talk and the stupid like overachievement bull crap that I was fed my whole life. And it's worse when you're like good at something at a young age. If you're good at academics at a young age, all of a sudden you're the hope and pride and the glory of the family and the community, and you're going to do all this. And it's like, how much freaking pressure can you put on a kid?
And then you're just going to grow up to be another one of us.
Why not just be a human being, right? Yeah. So I do every once in a while look at that and go like, yeah, I went scuba diving. Yeah, I did that. I jumped out of an airplane. Yeah, I helped an old lady across the street. Yeah, and you know what I mean? And I can like look at those things, and I try to do something little every day, something good for somebody randomly, usually every day, and write it on my list, and not really take credit for it or make a big deal out of it. And like when the opportunity arises, and usually there's an opportunity. If I go out in public, there's usually an opportunity. It was harder during COVID because
I know.
It was more about making phone calls and trying to keep in contact with people and that kind of stuff. But in everyday life, I don't care if it's giving somebody your shopping cart at Aldi without taking a quarter from them, or, whatever it is, just be a decent human being at one moment during the day. You don't even have to like do it to everybody all day long. Just that one redeeming moment.
Yep. No, I mean, those, I may have told you this before. I've almost been reduced to tears at certain times with interactions that I've had in public with people that I don't know. So many years I spent living here. I'm on the island now, and just so much. What are you looking at? Self-centeredism. Everybody's got a chip on their shoulder for reasons I don't. What are you mad about? What the hell are you mad about? You're living in the suburbs. You're living the American dream, and everybody's acting like they're pissed off all the time. And I've had plenty of interactions in public elsewhere, just common everyday things. Like here's one. And Sunday morning, we have bagels in the morning. I have to walk across the street to the bagel shop. And this particular day, I had to also get a couple other things at the grocery store, which is next door to the bagel shop. So in a zero plastic bag environment, I carry my own bag, and it's this little collapsible green flower bag that my wife bought. It's not a masculine bag by any stretch of the imagination. I go to the checkout line at the grocery store, and the woman comments, "Oh, I like your bag." I'm like, "Oh, thank you." Everybody comments on my bag. I didn't say, "Oh, it's my wife's," because you got to say that. It's not my bag. Don't go thinking this is my bag.
Did you say it's your wife's bag?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So then I walk next door to the bagel shop, and I order my bagel, and I'm paying. The girl says, "I really like your bag." And I just started laughing. I said, I got to tell you, and I'm laughing, I'm smiling at her. I said, 90% of the time that I carry this bag, I get comments on this bag. Everybody loves this bag. And she said, well, it's got a very eye-catching pattern. And I'm like, I know. So I just, laughed and I waved and I left. There's nothing. It's trivial interaction. But it was just people being nice about this floral bag that I carry the bagels around.
You made somebody smile.
Yeah. So these are just, so this is a sign that I see a lot lately. Maybe I'm just tuned into it, which is why it seems like I'm seeing it a lot. Bumper sticker or a t-shirt that says, be kind. And I feel like America in particular has gotten so incredibly aggressive, and everybody's on the warpath and everybody's factionalized and everybody's looking for a reason to fight. It's almost like when you approach another person now, are you on team red or team blue? And to the point that when people just act like human beings that aren't a member of a political party, and we're just all humans here on this planet, and we're being nice to each other, boy, it feels great.
Yep.
Like this is a good thing. I feel good to be a member of it, and I want more of that feeling and less of this other stuff. And also, I think that middle age, you've been through enough political cycles that you've seen your party win, you've seen it lose, you've seen the other guys come and go. You thought this guy was the great hope, you thought she was the great hope, and they come and they go, and they had good points, but they weren't the great final hope, and life went on. And even if it looks like it's going down overall and you're unhappy with the current situation, you've just seen the cycle so many times that you're looking beyond that horizon now.
Mm-hmm.
You still care about it because you have to, because there are decisions being made that could dramatically affect your life. But on the whole, like we were saying before at the very beginning of the conversation, don't meet your heroes. Politicians are that way. No, there's not going to be a savior politician. There never has been, there never will be. So to put all of your feelings for, I'm not really going to be happy until my party wins and my guy's in office and my people control the court. I won't be happy until then. Until then, I'm going to be a raging maniac until everything is set right. Forget it. You're going to be spending the rest of your life being unhappy and mad.
So there's a couple things there, but one is allowing external events to determine whether or not I'm going to be happy today.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a really great plan for serenity, is it?
It's a really bad plan. Which is why I've been trying to, with varying degrees of success, detach from all that stuff that's going on out there. It's always been going on. The only difference is it's in my world more than it ever was before, because it used to be that you would turn the TV on and it would blast. It would be that jumping television from Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah.
That's shouting at you all the time, but it wouldn't be on all the time. And when it was on, most of it would be sitcoms. The actual news and political stuff coming out, that would only last for like a half an hour a day.
Yeah.
But now, because of the internet, it's like all the time, constantly. No matter what platform you're on, it's there. And it's enraging. And me being upset in reaction to all that doesn't change any of it.
Right.
My frustration with these people are ignorant. These people are going against their own best interests. These people are dying because they won't get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Me being upset about it changes nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. So
I could of spies, right?
I could be spending that time reading an awesome book. I could be talking to somebody about Star Wars.
Yeah.
I could be painting. I could be doing any of these things and making good use of the time that I have on Earth, which is not infinite. But there are a lot of people out there that are spending all their time being upset about these things they can't change for membership on a team that they're not really a member of.
Nobody cares what your political beliefs are. Nobody, even the politicians, they don't care.
No, they don't.
They really don't.
Which feeds into this whole attraction that I've had since the pandemic of listening to music that is not connected to the internet.
Yeah.
Because when I'm doing that,
There's just no subliminal message.
I'm not picking songs through the phone, which means I'm not tempted to go onto the phone and look
Right.
at other stuff.
Right.
I'm more likely to be continue to be focused on if there's a book or whatever that's in front of me. So physical music is a way to try and enforce the disconnect.
It's a good way to look at it. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, it's an active, for me, it's an active plan of not participating in those things. When I bought this house in way back in 2002, I got 2 complimentary subscriptions to both the newspapers that were here. And like a hoarder and a I'll get to it later procrastinator kind of guy, I like doing the crossword puzzles. So I kept a lot of them until they piled up. And eventually it became a problem and I had to get rid of them. So I started going through them, and I had a very profound experience realizing as I was reading those headlines, how many of them were no longer relevant or just plain wrong. The news isn't the news. It's not what I thought the news was. I remember taking a course in college where I had to read like 5 newspapers every week, 5 different newspapers. Like I had to read like the Christian Science Monitor, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and all the same topics to learn about bias.
How'd they cover it? Yeah.
But it was, and that was informative, but this was like, but what I thought was there was the news and that I needed to get through an individual writer's bias in order to get the news. What I found out later is there is no news. There's just events that are happening. They're always happening. There's always a fire in Beltsuver. There's always a lost dog in Bellevue. You know what I mean? Like that's, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's it. I just interviewed a lady who was a producer of news for Channel 4 and Channel 2 locally. And there's a formula. I asked her straight up. I said, do you guys just like randomly blurt out like names of neighborhoods so that like our brains will light up? And I know somebody lives there. I know that place. And she's like, yeah, basically. I mean, she had another explanation for it, but basically, yes, there's a technique, and it's not really about, following up on stories, making sure they're accurate.
It's one hit.
Yep, you got it. So that poor lady that we learned about yesterday at 5:30, never to be seen again.
Right.
You'll never hear about her plight again. But we were supposed to emotionally engage in that moment. That's exhausting to me. I can't do that.
Well, it got you to watch some ads for laundry detergent.
Well, I need laundry detergent.
And a few other things that, television only exists to sell commercial airtime.
Yeah, but the newspapers weren't any better. See, I used to think the newspapers were great because I could read the headline and go, nope, don't want to read that. Nope, don't want to read that. But then I found out later, all that news was completely inaccurate because nobody had the facts. And the facts were ever changing.
Well, if you've ever seen a story covered that you were personally involved in or had personal knowledge of, that becomes very apparent very quickly. And I've had that experience. And what was reported on television was so wildly divergent from what the truth was, what the reality was, that I saw it with new eyes, and I realized that if I had not had the job I had and been ignorant of this, I would have watched that reporter tell that story. I would have been completely misinformed.
So now what's your attitude towards the news?
I view the news as, if I'm looking for infotainment, I mean, I know that's what I'm getting. I don't look to it as a way to be informed. If it's local news, I know that it's like television comfort food. I know exactly what I'm going to get. I'm going to get what you just described.
Yeah. I meant like if a reporter came to you to make and wanted you to make a comment on the news.
Yeah. They're probably going to.
I was thinking of Counselor Troy in Encounter at Farpoint when Picard talks about Q, and she says,
even the name sounds mysterious.
My recommendation is avoid contact.
Yeah.
That's the way I am with the news. Just avoid contact. There's one time I had a reporter come down to the bar, the Park House, and he interviewed a bunch of people. There was a State of the Union. This is all the way back when Clinton was president. And I said a couple things, and they were going to put us on the air. So they put us on the air, and never use pronouns. Took what I said completely out of context.
Right.
It made it sound like I was talking about something completely different.
Yeah.
It was completely edited the way they wanted to edit.
Yeah.
There was no concern about trying to make sure that the point I was trying to get across got across. Had nothing to do with that.
It's a product. It's a product.
I was a cog in that machine, and I won't do that. So that's why when I edit these videos, always, unless otherwise stated, if somebody says you have carte blanche, I always let them see it
right
before I air it, because I'm like, if I somehow edited something out, it makes you look like you meant something else.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that to somebody else.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
there's a whole reason the phrase soundbite was created.
Well, I like sound bites. Sound bites are fun, but what the ones I'm doing are innocent and fun. I'm not trying to get something from somebody, not advertising.
Well, you are
trying to get a vote.
You're not trying to hack human psychology in order to exploit their attention.
Right.
And many people have observed that one of the last great resources that is being mined is whatever little attention we have left.
Yeah.
Which is why social media platforms are free, because they're mining your attention. You're the product. They're gathering your data.
Yeah.
But TV was, I suppose, the first to really exploit that. Print news even before that. But this is a conversation you and I had years ago. There was one weekend that was a big epiphany weekend where I wish I could repeat that experience. I'm not sure I've ever experienced anything quite like it since, where I was reading this book and I just started getting ideas, and I just had this new window into reality. And that sounds crazy and hippie-ish, but I just felt like I saw the world in a new way that I had never seen before, in a way that made a lot of sense.
What's this magic book you read?
It wasn't a magic book. It was, I have it actually. It's in the other room.
Did it matter what the book was saying, or was it just something that happened?
No, it did. It was about the Gospels. I was going through a religious re-exploration phase, and I was trying to get to, as a person with the way I think would, I want to get to the heart of the matter. Give me the original texts.
Right.
I don't want the extra layer of interpretation. Right. I don't want church doctrine. What was really said? What really happened?
I'm going to learn Aramaic, and I'm going to read it in the original tongue.
Right. So it was something like that. So I was really trying to get to the core of it. And it was a book that was about that. And, so they talked about Jefferson and his expurgated version, where he removed any passage which referred to Christ as a divine figure. He removed any mention of miracles and so forth. So it was about a lot of other people's efforts trying to get to the same core truths. But one of the things I remember thinking after that, and had a conversation with you about, was that I suddenly felt that busying myself with really keeping up on the news was a complete waste of time. That it was like the Gnostics, right? Being deeply involved in this was shielding me from what's really going on in the universe and the world, because this is the world of nonsense and being busy. Meanwhile, this is what's really happening, and I can't see it because I'm too busy down in this part. It was one of those things, and it was just a very powerful feeling. And like I said, I've never really experienced it since. Maybe it was a one-time breakthrough, and I don't need to see it again. I don't know.
Sounds like it.
But
you learned the lesson.
That could be it. But it was just a really crazy transcendent moment. It was really cool. but I used to, when I was younger, I used to take pride in how closely I followed the news.
Yeah.
I read the Sunday Times
Yeah.
front to back. I
Yeah.
know what's happening. I know what's going on in Myanmar. You
Yeah.
know, I know what bills are up for HR 578s going to the House this week.
I can tell you 10 of the cabinet members' names,
All that stuff.
you know,
All
all
that
kinds of
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you worked for a government entity, so like there's some of that,
Yeah,
but
none
you
of that
know
mattered
who
to my
the
job.
Department of Energy chairperson is. I don't know that.
None of
But
that mattered to my job, but I just
no, but
I felt that
it would come up in conversation.
as a smart person, I should know these things, you know.
Yeah, I used to try to
And
be a responsible, informed citizen as well.
and then what I found out is just what we've been talking about, that that approach is actually detrimental
To my mental health.
to your mental health,
Of
to your enjoyment of what time you
life.
have, what you have on this planet,
Yeah.
and also from allowing you to see and experience the bigger things. These are ground level concerns.
Yeah.
The daily fuzz, the daily fog that we all move through. You know, political conflicts, broadcast television, a lot of the internet, what your neighbor is doing, versus these larger issues.
Yeah.
Which is why I enjoy conversations like this, because most people don't talk about these things.
I don't know. I don't know.
I suppose friends do, good friends do, but
I
it's
would
not.
hope that people have these conversations.
It's not. It's not the style of conversation I have much of an opportunity to engage in.
No, I mean, that's one of the things I'm trying to do here is I call on people that that I find interesting and having conversations with them, because that's how I want to spend my time now. You know,
Right.
I don't, it's not that I'm not open to meeting new people. I want to meet new people. And I actually have through this. I met some people. Rosemary Palermo, I met at a party, a friend of really Tara's friend. And now, I know way much more about her than I ever would have, I'd have been like, hi, how are you? Bye. Never meet you again. She lives on the West Coast. There's no reason for us to ever interact. And now we have an open dialogue. I can talk to her anytime I want. We have her number, we're going to do another one. We're going to do another video. It's just like you were saying before about everybody's interesting. Everybody's got a story. Everybody, you just got to dig it out of them. You got to like give them a chance to express it. We can talk about deep stuff. We can talk about deep stuff. We can talk about stupid, like crazy stuff. Like, or is there life on other planets and why can't we see it? We can talk about this stuff and we don't have to like look like freaks or like, these are things that like, there's basic human curiosity and like, fun things to talk about, like going for a deep dive in 2001. Why the hell not?
Well, I think that it's a very Gen X thing. You remember in our 20s, teens, that everything was ironic. Nobody, you couldn't be openly sincere about anything. You had to ironically mock everything.
I still like irony.
Of course, I do too, and I openly mock everything. But the point I'm making is that it is very difficult for a lot of people to be willing to talk about things they really care about. It's much easier to talk about the weather, talk about football, safe topics, because talking about things you really care about means either potentially bringing up a topic that will anger somebody else or confuse them, or embarrass them, so that it's easier just to stick with safe topics. I
think that maybe, but I think also like, well, I don't want to go like digging into all kinds of controversy and stuff, because like I said, I don't think that contributes that much to anything. I don't know that I like, well, I mean, obviously on these, I actively avoid politics because it's just so toxic right now. There's just no way people can't, you and I and Dennis and other friends of ours, we used to have conversations, Will, about politics without becoming deeply emotionally engaged. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't an emotional investment. We would get excited about it. We might even raise our voices about it.
Yeah.
But at the end, we were all still friends. We all still had the same relationship after we had the conversation.
Right.
I don't see that as much now. I see it as so divisive among people. It's like, I will have those conversations, but only with people I know for a fact we're going to be sane afterwards, right?
Right, and that's an important distinction. And I've done that sort of sorting myself. Before the pandemic, I used to be in a wine club. We would meet once a month.
Sure.
And it would be, we're going to do Malbecs this month, or we're going to do Merlots this month, whatever. And it was a mixed political group, and I was by far the youngest guy in the group by easily 10 years. And they were trying to get some fresh blood in because the old guys were dying out. And a couple of the outspoken ones were pretty liberal, and some of the quiet guys were pretty conservative. And when some of the liberal guys would spout off, the other guys would just kind of like clam up. And one guy left, and I thought he was great. I love this guy. We had a lot of good conversations about everything, not politics. And I ran to him in a restaurant. I'm like, Rick, why? We missed you. Why'd you leave the group? He's like, I couldn't take the political discussions anymore. Like I felt like an outsider.
Yep.
I'm like, wow, I didn't know. And I always tried to play it very much down the middle with that group, because if you don't know what everybody's politics are, you don't want to bring it up.
Nope.
Some of the older guys didn't care because they're older. They don't give a crap.
Right.
But I don't want to make enemies. So there are people that I do know that we're of a similar mind. And even if we have a differing viewpoint, we know that we can just talk about it, that it's not personal, that it's not about you and me.
You can separate it.
We're talking about what these politicians are doing.
Right.
It's not our tribal membership.
Right.
And that I love to talk about these things. And when we're done, it's like, we're done now.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about something else.
Yeah.
But some people can't do that.
They can't let it go. What I find is once the topic has been broached, it becomes the dominant topic for the rest of the conversation.
It does.
For the next 3 hours, that's
does.
what's going to happen. It's always going to come back to that. And it's like, nobody can let it go and move on.
You're absolutely right. And if you avoid it, you can stick to other conversations that you're right. As soon as it comes out, it never goes away.
Well, the problem is also it's talked about in generalizations,
right?
And huge swaths, big brush, and it's like my politics, if I have any, are issue by issue and very complex. So
Chris Rock has a great stand-up bit about that.
You can't just put me in a corner. I can't do that.
Yeah. He does this bit. It's something along the lines of, I'm liberal about some things, I'm conservative about others. I'm liberal about prostitution.
Yeah.
I'm conservative about my taxes.
Right. Right. Especially anybody who makes over 6 figures a year. Sure.
Yeah.
Of course, you're going to be a fiscal conservative. You don't want your income tax raised. Why would you want that? Doesn't make any sense,
But I think what changed is when we were younger.
Yeah.
There was a broad middle. There's always been polarization. I mean, you've read as many history books as I have about America in the 20th century and earlier. It's always been there. We didn't know about it because we didn't live through it and it wasn't covered in our education. But when you really get into the nitty gritty, man, you've had some taking the Civil War out of the equation is the the worst ever.
Pretty obvious.
The civil rights issues throughout the 20th century were pretty horrifying. And lynching was common, and all kinds of just horrible social justice issues were going on. So it's always been there. But we grew up in kind of what felt like to me like a golden era.
Halcyon days.
Where you had this fat middle of consensus that was helped along by the fact that you only had 3 major news networks. So there was kind of a homogenization of how political events were covered. And that all changed when cable news factionalization began, and they started creating these hardcore factions. Conflict and drama to sell laundry detergent.
That's right.
So the atmosphere that we grew up in which it was easier to have these conversations is it's gone. So now it feels to me more like like a Myanmar, where there's, active conflict and government overthrows, and there's no way the two sides are ever going to be able to peacefully talk about these issues without coming to blows. I feel like we're edging closer to that all the time.
Yeah, it's the I feel like maybe it was because I was young, but I felt like there was always a sense of progress. We were moving forward.
Yes.
No matter what side of the political spectrum seemed to be more dominant at the time, there was still a sense of moving forward, and especially with knowledge, science, technology, all of this was in lockstep. So it was like, so yes, there were problems. Yes, there was discrimination. Yes, women didn't make as much as men. Yes, but we were moving in the right direction.
They were
We were just
they weren't.
sometimes one was moving slower than the
Yeah.
other, but we were still going in the proper. We're being, we're in the right flow. It
Right.
doesn't feel that way.
The
Now
arc
I
of
feel like we're
the
tossed on a stormy sea, and we don't have any rudder.
that's I completely agree, and it as other people have written, it seemed as if liberal democracy had won.
Yeah.
It was simply the way that world governments were either going to stay, or other countries that were not part of the fold were going to be eager to join.
Right.
And that all these concepts, egalitarian concepts and whatnot, were just cemented. And the differences that existed were minor policy discrepancies, but not massive. And now what we find is that was an illusion, that the solidity of Western liberal democracy was not nearly as firmly entrenched as it seemed to be. It seemed like it was over. We'd won. So
What happened, I think, was we had a fundamentally optimistic point of view, and it backfired.
Well, sometimes when you're born at the top, you feel like this is inevitable.
We thought that just the value system, the Western, like you said, you used the words liberal democracy, but that value system was so inherently, obviously beneficial to all of humanity, every corner of the earth, that it was irrefutable that there could be any other way of looking at it.
Right.
It was just the best way to go.
Right.
And we were wrong that people would assume that was the case.
Yep.
We didn't realize that we really needed to propagandize it. We needed to sell it. We needed to show people. We needed to do it through our actions. However, there was also this kind of, now I'm going to get into I don't know, we should probably just even turn off the recording.
Yeah, go ahead.